The modern American city. People on the move, constant noise, and easy to access anything you want at a moment's notice. If you're hungry, well, then go get a burger. If you need to go shopping, well, then go to your local Walmart. We are living in a time where self sustainability is no longer a necessity to thrive. But it wasn't always that way. Before your Walmarts and supermarkets of the world, the only way to buy groceries was from local grocery marts. And before that, the only way was from local farmers or to grow your own. Now, what I'd really like to focus on is the growing your own part. Not many people nowadays still practice this, especially in a city environment. There's a term, however, for people who still practice growing their own crops in a city. This is called urban agriculture.
The definition for urban agriculture is crop farming, raising animals, and aquaculture activities that are carried out in suburban and urban settings and are separated from the customary rural farm setting. People typically develop urban farms to support their income, increase food production, engage in recreation activities, or promote farming as a positive communal activity. Having a little garden in the back that you can work on with your kids helps bring food to the table, as well as teach important skills and discipline to kids. Urban agriculture gardens could be on rooftops, on a porch in the house, or even in your backyard. Anywhere you can fit a tiny box with soil can be used as a garden.
A big effect of urban agriculture is it lessens food deserts, which are areas where no stores are selling reasonably priced food. It enhances the amount of fresh produce, fruits, and meats that can be found for city folk. Especially in an economy like today's, where every day it feels like everything's getting more expensive, it can be really hard to find reasonably priced food, especially healthy food. It costs so much money to go buy the meat in buns to make your own burgers with healthy vegetables than it does to go stop at Wendy's and grab a 4 for 4. Ease of access is the major thing that scares people away from starting their own urban agricultural garden. It's a lot of work, and a lot of people do not feel like they have the time to put aside for urban agriculture. However, I think these people are missing out on the impact that it can have on their lives.
To understand why we are talking about urban agriculture, we must first understand the urban part. Over 80% of the global gross domestic product was generated in cities in 2020. In a similar vein, cities utilize 60 to 80% of the world's greenhouse gases and utilize over 75% of natural resources, despite making up less than 5% of the planet's area. Once more, cities are home to over 55% of the world's population in 2020. And by 2050, that percentage is expected to rise to 70%. This tells us that unless we make the change, things are only going to get worse. Food's going to get more inaccessible and expensive, and things are just going to get more compact. Urban agriculture is just one way we can help curb this statistic. Self-sustainability is severely lacking in these cities, which is leading to more waste being generated. This is a major reason why urban agriculture is important.
But to totally understand urban agriculture, we should take a step back and look at the history of it throughout humanity. Urban agriculture has a rich history that spans centuries of various cultures. The practice of growing food within a city has evolved in response to changing societal, economic, and environmental conditions. Ancient civilizations contain the roots of urban agriculture. Civilizations such as Mesopotamia, where the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the world, are believed to have been the earliest examples of urban gardening. Ancient Rome also had urban gardens. The cities often cultivated small plots within the city. In medieval Europe, monasteries had gardens that were not only sources of food, but also served medicinal and educational purposes. These gardens were often laid out in structured and orderly manners. Victory gardens during World War I and II gained prominence. Citizens in various countries were encouraged to grow their own food in home gardens to supplement food supply and support the war effort. These gardens were widespread in urban areas and contributed significantly to local food production. Post-industrial revolution led to a massive shift of populations from rural to urban areas. As cities expanded, green spaces diminished. However, this is when community gardens and altomont gardens became popular, providing urban residents with opportunities to grow their own food. Especially people coming from the Midwest where farming was everyone's life, I'm sure it felt nice to have a little bit of home in the big city. In mid-20th century, the greening of cities movement emerged in response to urbanization and environmental concerns. Cities began to incorporate green spaces and community gardens as part of urban planning. This movement aimed to provide the quality of life in urban areas and enhance the environment. In more recent decades, there has been a resurgence of interest in urban agriculture, driven by concerns about food security, environmental sustainability, and the desire for locally sourced produce. Worldwide, we have witnessed the establishment of rooftop gardens, vertical gardens, and initiative urban farming practices using hydroponics and aquaponics. It's nice to see the city help promote a more self-sustainable lifestyle.
Community gardens have also played a crucial role in promoting social cohesion and community involvement. They serve as spaces for education, cultural exchange, and neighborhood bonding. A perfect example of this is the one we have here at Worcester State. Not only have I used this garden in an educational context for a meeting for my class, I've also gone here just to clear my head and see the plants. Every time I drive by, I always see a group of people bonding or a class learning about something new. Gardens, I believe, are one of the most important implementations of urban agriculture we can have, especially for young people to come together for a common interest. Many urban agriculture initiatives are now intertwined with social justice and environmental sustainability movements. As urban agriculture is now intertwined with social justice, so are women. Throughout most of our history, women have been seen as the other group, the second sex, a group that is lesser than the others and have throughout history been tied to farming and raising youth. David Beauvoir would agree with me. She was a feminist existential philosopher who asked the question, what is it to be a woman? And I think she would have a lot to say about urban agriculture, especially in modern times where the environmental awareness is at the forefront of general consciousness. Social issues are being brought to light, and the idea that women are the second sex is starting to dissipate. And with that, boxes that people are placed into are starting to fade as well. For a man to own a personal garden and care about the environment could have been seen as weird 20 years ago. But as social justice movements and environmental movements continue to progress, we're seeing more and more acceptance from both sides. Urban agriculture might carry the stigma of being for women for some, but I hope instead of causing more division, it can help bring people together.
Today, technological advancements have facilitated the growth of urban agriculture. Vertical farming, hydroponics, and other farming techniques I talked about are being employed to maximize food production in limited urban spaces. The history of urban agriculture is extremely interesting, showing the changing needs and priorities of societies throughout time. From ancient civilizations to the modern era, the practice continues to evolve as communities seek sustainable solutions for food production in an urban environment.
Immediately, problems get around here when discussing the effects of urban agriculture. Because in reality, just one person making their life more green and adding more self-sustainability to their practices isn't going to change anything. The world is still getting hotter, gas is still going up, and inflation will continue to rise. But ultimately, that doesn't really matter. And Kant would agree with me. Kantian philosophy is all about your intention. Kant states consequences have no moral importance because we cannot control them. The only thing that we do control is our intention. Kant was a deontologist, which means he focused on duty-based ethics. Kant believed that we all had a duty that needed to be fulfilled. He believed in the categorical imperative, which states, acts such as the maximum of your actions should be willed into universal law. To word this in a more easy to understand way, essentially, it's the golden rule. He means you must act in a way that you want the world to work. And while you could say, this is just ideal thinking, and it's not going to change anything, I think it is about the small changes. If one person has the intention to make their life better, that ideology will start to spread. And once that happens, that's where you see true change. And even if the change is isolated, you can sleep better at night knowing you are doing your part to make the world better. To make a change, though, you don't need a full urban garden in your backyard. Just one tomato plant can make the difference. Instead of stopping at McDonald's on the way home or at Walmart, stop at the butcher's. A little conscious change, changes in your intention, changes to how you get your needs, and what gives urban agriculture the power to change the world.
To get more people interested in urban agriculture, we could start doing workshops. These urban agriculture workshops can show people how to grow their own plants in a small environment and how to prepare their own food. A group called UNANR demonstrated this in California. Well, yes, most of the people had already been practicing urban agriculture or some form of farming before this workshop. It still proved to be an effective tool in strengthening their skills and widening their knowledge. 87% of people in a day of survey said they found the workshop extremely helpful. 62% engaged in agricultural advocacy after the workshop. 39% took steps towards participating in urban agriculture incentives, and 33% brought their farming operation to regulatory standards. All these statistics show that just one workshop can have a pretty big effect. Imagine if we did this in schools or university campuses. One of the biggest barriers to getting into urban agriculture is knowledge and access, but through implementing workshops, we can make a difference. I'm not saying urban agriculture will fix the problems of the world. I'm not saying we all need to change our lifestyle drastically, but that one tomato plant, that one little garden on your porch can make a difference in your family's life. Talking about the sources that I used and the ethical theories that I use. So I use Kantian deontology, where I talked about the intentions. I used De Beauvoir's feminist existentialist theories, where I talked about the history of gardening and how that relates to women. One of my sources was Urban Agriculture, Local Economic Development, and Climate Change, which I will link alongside my video link. And another one was the Urban Agriculture in California, and that's where I got the statistics at the end for how workshops. And the other one is where I got these statistics for how cities, like the amount of waste the cities are producing. And I also used the Worcester State Public Library Urban Agricultural Research Starter, which I found through the library, and that helped me just get a lot of the basic information, a lot of the history too. And I also utilized the Wikipedia page on urban agriculture, although I tried not to take that too seriously because I don't trust Wikipedia.